Welcome to our very first live recording of Feel Fresh Tuesdays. This is going to be the space, the place for you to rock out with us, where we dive into a topic that matters. I'm going to use the word dramatically. I don't know why. Dramatically matters. It does, right? It dramatically matters how important it is to talk about alcohol reduction and live with choice and freedom without the negative stigma and connotation. I'm Tom Curra, founder of Drink Less, Feel Fresh. And there's the very talented Nat Hodges.
I love it. I'm Nathaniel Hodges. I'm the lead program designer and lead facilitator here at Drink Less, Feel Fresh.
Yes. When are you going to introduce me, Nat? Am I always going to be doing the introduction?
No, you're always the intro. I get your coffees, mate. I'm not here.
Oh God, love it. Bear with me. Look at us figuring out the tech issues already. All right. Cool. Nat, we're ready to dive into it.
It's far away, mate. Let's do it.
It's 12 o'clock.
On the dot.
12 o'clock on the dot. Nat, remind us, what is the purpose of these conversations, these Feel Fresh Tuesday calls?
Well, it's to get an immediate insight and an immersion into the way we think and the way we lead. We head up the company and what we're doing for people in the alcohol reduction journey. It's a step on the other side of the barrier, I suppose, to see how Tommy and I thought through this stuff, how we're innovating things, how we're working with clients, and to give you a first-hand taste of the inner thinking process, feeling process of what we're moving through here at Drink Less, Feel Fresh, which is a totally novel approach and a modern approach to alcohol reduction because people deserve to do it, and it's healthy and it's right and it's good. But our heads get in the way of the culture and tell us why it's not, but it's necessary.
I love what you said there, which was the specific line. I think it was people deserve to do it. Like people do deserve to drink less alcohol.
Yeah.
Yet it's so unsocially acceptable to do it unless you're an addict. Like, and this is what I wanted to talk about today with you, Nat, if you're up for the conversation, is like, what do you think the definition, or better question, what do you think the purpose of using labels to identify ourselves? What do you think the purpose of labels are?
Labels are a double-edged sword. So when someone is struggling with their experience and their model of themselves and life cannot handle what's going on for them, the correct label can break them free. When someone, the other side of that is whatever can break you free is also a trap. And that's the double edge of it. It's like you can fall asleep in a label. You can go to sleep in your life and self with a label. Label depression, label anxiety, label addiction, label addict, whatever. You can go to sleep inside that label and use it as a moment of significance or an area of validation.
And for anybody that's listening right now, jump straight into, if you're listening to the podcast, you won't be able to do this, but you can answer the question in your head. But for anyone that's listening live, jump into the Q&A panel or the chat panel and let us know. Have you ever experienced a label, used a term or a definition to describe yourself, and it's really helped you move forward? And on the other side of that, have you ever used a label to describe yourself and you've noticed, using the terminology that Nat's using, you've used it to give yourself permission to go to sleep?
Yeah.
Now, whenever someone asks me, so Tom, would you say that I'm an alcoholic?
Oh God, what a loaded question.
I hear this question a lot. Would you say that I'm an alcoholic? My response always kind of fascinates, or kind of is just kind of rocks their mind a little bit. My response is always, what are you going to do with the answer?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah. A lot of people, oh, do you think my husband's an alcoholic? Or they say, they're talking to me about themselves or someone that they know. Do you think it's often this, apparently the label is going to make sense to everything? I personally think that, if I can just even rant for a little bit here, I think we use labels so that we can understand how we're human beings. But then within those labels, we completely forget that we're human beings.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We use these labels to understand, okay, that's what's going on for me. And so when someone says to me, oh, do you think I'm an addict? Or what's the difference between someone who identifies as an alcoholic or not? Yeah, my rebuttal is always, what are you going to do with the answer? Because in my what I really do believe is that labels are either used for one or two things. to give you a valid justification and reason why you should push on and continue living an incredible life, or you use a label to justify why that life's too difficult for you or that life's too hard.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, Nat?
It kind of circles back into what I was saying before. I think it comes down to each individual on this call right now watching this. I think it truly funnels back into that, Tommy. It's like the individual know inside their heart what they're doing with that label. They'll know they're organizing themselves behind it in a way not to change, or they'll be using it as a truth of their life to then continue on. That's the only two ways it's going to go. You either organize yourself behind it in a limiting condition, you limit yourself because of the label, or you recognize the truth of the label because of what our world can give to us and offer us as a stepping stone to move on.
Would you, anybody that's listening right now, surely if we're going to be honest with ourselves, which is what the calls are for, surely if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we can clearly identify labels that we've used to help progress and lift us forward and labels we've used as an excuse.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
What we're talking about here is the controversial topic. Well, you can't say that if they've got the label.
Yeah.
You can't say that to someone who's been clinically diagnosed with active alcoholism.
You actually need to say it to them. That's the difference here. You need to say it.
Tell us more.
Well, it's our responsibility as people to look after each other. We need to tell people to move on. It's our. I mean, what else are we doing here? What if we have a responsibility if we can see where someone is stuck, it's then our duty and responsibility to gently but carefully share with that person that the journey continues. And you do it with encouragement and love and compassion. But we have to.
Now, I was speaking to a good friend about 2 months ago. They're a great friend, awesome person. We both experienced addiction in many ways, specifically in regards to alcohol, drugs, party scene, etc., etc. I went down the path of studying human behavior, looking at labels early on to identify, what was going on for myself, and then realizing that if I wanted choice and freedom was about taking responsibility beyond the label, so to speak. Nice. And then there's an amazing approach a lot of people may know of called the 12-step rehabilitation program or the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And my friend's going through that program. And I was speaking to them 2 months ago, and we always talk different, they're great because they're open to new ideas. However, I was speaking to them a couple of months ago, and I was sharing this philosophy with them that labels are used to help you clarify who you are so that you can break free from who you've been to expand.
Okay.
And yeah. So this is where the conversation started to experience a bit of friction. And so try this on. Where we got to, which I think is one of the biggest problems when it comes to traditional views, where we got to in the conversation was a limit that apparently this friend isn't allowed to reach full freedom and choice, because part of the process is learning that you don't have choice. You are under the willpower of something greater than yourself, and it's not your choice. So you should never dabble in it, which is great. It's fantastic. Perfect learning for a perfect stage of the journey that you're at. Okay. However, where I think it causes huge problems is when me and my friend are connecting. We're having honest, authentic, cool conversations, open conversations. And then I hear this. You know what? Actually, it doesn't matter, Tom. And I said, sorry? And they said, yeah, I just realized that you wouldn't understand because you're not an alcoholic. Right? Yeah. Okay. And I'm sitting there going, really?
Yeah.
We just used the label that helps us connect with ourselves. We just used the label to disconnect from someone else.
Yeah.
To provide separation and divide between you're you, I'm me, I'm different, you're different, but to the extent of we can't connect. Not we're all different, so we should accept and connect deeply. We're all different, so we should disconnect. And what I learned in that conversation, we did continue having the conversation, but I learned there are terms traditionally for alcoholics, and then there's terms for non-alcoholics, and the term is actually normie. You're a normie.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a term there which is like, oh no, Tom's a normie. Tom wouldn't understand it because he's not doesn't have
Yes.
the alcohol gene, or he's not labeled an alcoholic. Even though 8 years ago, I sat in a doctor's office and he said, yeah, there's a very high chance you're an
You're an
alcoholic.
alcoholic.
You're in active addiction. It's genetically passed on. It's in the environment that you've been in, and all the, the clinical diagnosis, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what are you, that's an experience I've had many times, by the way. Would you agree that that experience is happening everywhere within the Australian drinking culture? A lot of people just don't have access to that language or that clarity that it's going on.
Yeah. Can you like pull the question down to a kernel for me? Tell me, what is the direct question?
The direct question is this now. What are the problems we're seeing or will see within the Australian drinking culture if there's this dissonance and disconnect between someone who's either labeled an alcoholic or someone who's not? Like, I think you spoke about it a few weeks ago when we're having a really passionate conversation. You were talking about you can't look at this topic through a black and white lens. It creates a lot of problems. So I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit. Like, what are the downfalls or problematic areas that arise if you constantly look at alcohol as either you're fine, don't worry about your alcohol intake, or if you're really going to worry, we should diagnose you as an alcoholic?
Yeah. It's dangerous to look at anything black and white. It's just not the right lens to get precise about anything. Everything is a spectrum. Everything. And that's the problem. Part of the problem straight away is this black or white duality of alcoholic, non-alcoholic. That just isn't real in experience. It's just not real. And by our mind, when it does that of alcoholic, non-alcoholic, we can't heal and grow as people in this culture unless we start to sort that out. So it's a non-starter. It actually is completely dysfunctional. It's completely dysfunctional for everyone. Addicts and non-addicts alike. It doesn't do good for either side because it's not a side. There's a spectrum.
Can you? These calls are going to be so good.
Yeah. Well, let's simply just use an easy measure of drinks consumed. I have family members I watch go through active addiction. That was a carton of beers a day, small VB stubbies. That was just every day. So that now you can scale that down to a 6-pack a day. That's still a problem. It's still a lot of heaviness on the body to handle and metabolize all that. That's still a problem. You get down to 2 a night, 2 wines a night, you start getting into normal social expectations, and all of a sudden it starts to become okay. And because what happens around, you see people around that 2-3 drinks a night here's part of the problem, is you can have 2 or 3 drinks a night and you can still adhere to the values that the culture want of you. You can still get up, you can still go to work, you can still be, as long as you're adhering to cultural values, and we don't bat an eye, which is full of shit, because cultural values are a version of augmented reality. I know it's a bit heavy, but the cultural values of go to work, be progressive, add value, blah, 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 accumulate your wealth and do all that shit. That is one strand of reality. But as long as people can do that and drink 2 or 3 drinks a night, we don't bat an eye. Yet there's one simple question. Okay, you can live the cultural values, no problem. You're a functioning partial addict. Are you happy? Does life have meaning? Overflowing with love? Overflowing with purpose? The answer is going to be no. So, and then you scale down into, okay, binge drinking on the weekend, binge drink every month, don't drink at all. It's pretty simple.
We have when you said that, I was kind of giggling because there is also still a label for that, isn't it? Like, oh, well, that's functioning addict.
Functioning addict, yeah.
That's a high functioning addict. I think the conversation where it gets really meaningful is when we talk about most of us, if not all of us, especially if we're listening to these podcasts, if we're looking to replace a behavior that we don't feel proud of, chances are we're experiencing disconnection. There's a level of happiness and meaning in our lives that's missing. Now, everybody gets afraid to hear that because they go, well, it's only 10%. So I don't want to accept it. Like life looks
Yeah.
great. The family, the kids, the business, everything's going good. It's just this one little thing.
Yeah, exactly.
If we don't accept that we're not happy and fulfilled, as you were saying, I could be wrong here, but in my opinion, then we have a disconnect between we're not happy, but socially we're supposed to be, because we're only having 2 drinks. We're getting to work, body's in okay physical shape. We go to the gym, finances, we're not bankrupt yet. Family's in, connection. And
You're
so
right, Tommy, you've got it.
there's a disconnect between we're not happy, but socially speaking, we should be.
It's a really easy thing to sum up, and it goes like this. The combination of our cultural unspoken rules, hang on, give me 2 seconds. That was my mother calling me. I was going to disrupt the podcast. When you have a cultural way of life, you have unspoken rules around drinking, you have careers and families and all that stuff. What it does is it puts us on a path of who we are, but doesn't put us on a path of who we actually truly want to be. And that's the divide. It's like, this is just who we are, but it's got nothing to do with who we actually want to be inside and outside. So we just stick to the path of least resistance and then go, oh, I'm pretty happy, I think, I suppose. Don't inquire too hard. What are you going to find?
Don't inquire too hard, which is generally one of the biggest triggers for people picking up a glass of alcohol at the end of the day. Is if you spend enough time and energy being present with yourself, you're inquiring.
That's exactly right.
We found with the Drink Less Feel Fresh community, thousands of people been through that over the past 4 years or 5 years now. And one of the most common reasons to drink has been, especially for the individuals who are having a few drinks a night, not individuals that are traditionally labeled alcoholic, can't function in life, relationship breakdown, financial loss, not individuals that are experiencing that, individuals that are habitually drinking 7 nights a week, so to speak, not really too sure how to socialize without having a couple of drinks. One of the most common triggers that we hear is like, what are you drinking? We ask the question so often, and when people are present and honest with themselves, often we hear this,
yeah.
like, and there's this, we don't understand as individuals that that's okay. We go, well, I'm not drinking because I'm going through a crisis. I'm not drinking, I hear this a lot. I don't drink because I'm stressed, Tom. We have this, I get so passionate about it. I've got to bite my tongue sometimes. There's this socially appropriate response, apparently, that you need to have that's enough justification to start a drink less journey.
Yeah.
Which is why it's disgusting. You hear this, that person's got to hit rock bottom. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't need to hit rock bottom. It's just that hitting rock bottom makes it socially acceptable for someone to say no to a drink, and you'll go, okay, and support them. Because if the person hasn't hit rock bottom and they say, no, thanks, I don't want a shot at the wedding, everybody responds with, well, have a shot. It's a wedding. Don't make it about you. But if that person says, I'm actually in an AA system, I'm a rehabilitated addict, if there's socially appropriate terms and labels there, the social group go, okay, we better support them.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, Tommy, is not necessarily that the society does that. I think the reflection of that challenge is that individual, let's say you have an individual and they want to stop drinking, and they know it's a problem, but it's not too big of a problem yet. I don't think the reason why it's hard is not because the social milieu says, oh, what are you doing? Too bad. I think what's happened is that person has built their self off so many external inputs that if they were to give that up, they're actually giving up an entire self. So when we get influenced by other people in the culture, we tend to look externally to validate and confirm who we are. And so we're constantly looking around. And when you're in a group of mates and you're being validated so much by you can party, you can drink, you can do this, you can do that, to make the decision of I don't want to do that anymore, or I want to do it less, is the same as saying I don't want to be the self that I am anymore.
Yeah, well said. You reminded me of a great quote out there, just along the lines of, in order to find yourself, you've got to lose yourself. And, I think you speak to that quite closely, which is, one of the rebuttals we often hear is, oh, what are you really concerned about when it comes to drinking less or experiencing a 30 or a 60-day detox?
It's a great question.
We often hear, well, I'm just going to lose my friends.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks, volumes to what you're suggesting, which is in order to, it feels like you're not being you. You
Yes.
are. You're just letting go of the you that you've always thought you need to be.
That's it. That's exactly right.
And it is. It feels like, it can feel like a bit of a catch-22, right? It's like, no, I'm being rejected from my tribe, but it's no.
Yeah.
I'm being rejected because I'm not continuing to be the person that I portrayed myself to be.
Which was a lie at the start anyway.
There we go. It was a lie. It was a front. And that can seem quite heavy, where you can fall into the category of, no, I was just doing the best I can with what I had. Yeah, we get that.
Yeah.
You can't let that label or quote, you're always doing the best you can with what you've got. You can't then let that be a reason why you can't grow.
But Tommy, this is the structure of all transformation and change anyway. Like, this isn't just situated in the alcohol domain. When anyone wants to change, that is the process of going, oh shit, I've just realized I've been investing so much time and energy into a model of who I am that actually limits me. And there's a frustration that goes with that. There's a frustration and an irritation of going, why did I invest so much energy into such a limited model of who I am? And then you've got to get over almost it's not grief, but you've got to get over you feel like you've let yourself down because you put so much energy into something that wasn't you. And it's actually a natural stage to go, I invested my time and energy into the wrong place or the wrong people or the wrong version of me. And that's okay.
What would you say to someone, people that are listening that might be in a similar position or wanting to look at changing their relationship with alcohol? What would you suggest to them as a starting foundation? If it wasn't, head off to your GP and give, gain a recommendation from them.
And that's a cracking question. That's a really, really direct, good question. I actually would start with, I wouldn't put the pressure on yourself to just all of a sudden stop drinking. I would actually say, if you want to stop drinking for the first month, keep your habit the same, but just watch yourself do it. For the first month, just keep your drinking habits exactly the same, but just watch when in the day, why, what's it feel like? What do you get out of it? Inquire into it and start there without the pressure of, I'm doing a bad thing, must change.
I didn't know you were going to answer with that because I put you on the spot with the question, but you really just summed up conscious living, which is what we truly believe in Preach It, Drink Less, Feel Fresh, which is, this has little to do with whether you do or don't drink. It has to do with, are you taking responsibility for the decisions that you live each day?
Yep.
Okay. Nat, you wouldn't have seen this. I just wrote it last night. Last night I was writing out an article and I was giving an example on this topic actually. And I said, I used to work, for those of you that know me, excuse me, just clear my throat. For those of you that know me, I was in hospitality for 8 years before looking into psychology and studying human behavior. So I've got a great lens of not only being in huge levels of alcohol consumption, but serving and watching and observing. And I was writing the article last night, what we're talking about now, which is, it's not about the content. It's not about how much content, meaning how much you consume, right? It's about the context. And I gave what I thought was a pretty cool example. I used to run a bar called the Reddit Rugby Club. Great place, such fond memories of working there, young 20s, early 20s I was in. Now, there was a man by the name of Jeff that would come in every day. He drank more alcohol than I've ever seen a human being drink, from dawn till dusk. He was happy and joyful. And I don't think I ever, in the 4 years that I worked there, experienced what I could label or suggest to be a negative, disgruntled, unfortunate, unpleasing, disconnected experience or moment. Right?
There you go.
And not once did I ever think, I probably got alcohol problem. I shouldn't do this. And in saying that, I knew tens of other guys that would come in and have 2 drinks. And within 2 drinks, I'd think to myself, oh man, I don't know if you should be drinking. I just don't know if you should be drinking. Now, clinically speaking, one of those people would be labeled an addict. non-clinically speaking, making it contextually appropriate, only one of those people should not be drinking alcohol. And it ain't the guy that drinks a carton of beer a day.
Yep, exactly right. That is a cracker of an example.
And that's
I get similar. Sorry, go Tommy.
Well, this is one of the examples where we're going to get some professional academics tuning out or providing some negative comments here.
Yeah, good. See ya. You're in the wrong place if that's you. Get out.
Yeah, wrong crowd. Imagine that. Let's take happiness and joy away from that man because he's over the limit of how much you should or should not drink. Let's not interrupt the man that only has 2 drinks, that also acts like a dickhead, causes drama, upsets the staff. You know, the list goes on, and I'm just thinking literally 2 or 3 people now that I knew over 4 years. That's okay. And here's the thing. If that other person that drinks 20 beers a day says, I should probably stop drinking, it would probably be like, yeah, that's a good thing. And if this person that acts like, a dickhead, a wanker, is disgruntled, is rude, is disrespectful, goes, I should probably not drink it, but you don't drink that much.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't look at the context of, are you happy? Are you causing drama? How are you acting? What's going on in your life?
Here's guys, I'll give you 2 examples from Tommy because you just fired that up. The first one is a guy called Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary was the golden child of Harvard in the 60s, psychology department. Bit of a loose unit, bit of a wild boy, didn't give him a full office. They gave him a janitor's cupboard. Genius. Anyway, he founded the Black Friday experiment, which is the first experiment done with psychedelics, and they did it in a church service. Anyway, he's a rebel psychologist. He got diagnosed with cancer. I think he's passed away now, but anyway, when he got diagnosed, it was terminal. So all he did, he traveled around the world celebrating his upcoming death, just getting pissed every day. And it was just, he had such a freedom in himself about what he is and who he is and what he's doing, that he said, the only reason I didn't drink, he's like, I loved alcohol. The only reason I didn't drink is I couldn't do my work properly. He's like, now I'm not working. He's like, carry around a 6-pack basically every day, wherever I go. And happy as Larry.
Wow.
My story from my life is I've been so aware when I drink that I've got it down to kind of like, a fine art. I know certain type of beers interact with me in a certain way, certain type of wines interact with me a certain way. And I've got it down to what experience I'm going into with the people. I know what alcohol, how fast to drink it and how much to drink to optimize that experience.
Isn't that, we won't dive too much into it today because we'll bring this episode to a close soon because I think we've nailed it. But maybe next week we might dive into the unfortunate misunderstanding and the complete unawareness that alcohol is a drug. Like there's just an assumption that because it's not handed over a counter, then there's nothing really you should be worried about.
It is a full-blown drug, a state-changing drug. Of course.
Yeah, if there's no real warnings on it other than drink responsibly. Like how funny is that as a cop out? Drink responsibly, gamble responsibly.
Isn't that madness?
Yeah, and I think that's really unfortunate. Like what you spoke about there and touched on, it's very similar to the way that I live my life as well, which is, if you're gonna drink alcohol, at least own the fact that you're using it or you're utilizing it. A lot of people just don't accept that they're utilizing it for certain reasons, and they fall victim to thinking, well, I'm not using it for anything. It's just something that I need. Like your Panadol or your Nurofen or your anti-inflammatories, you use them to reduce pain, alleviate pain, potentially increase productivity or performance levels. I think the first step is just honestly looking at or probably asking yourself is, am I using this for performance? And it sounds so simple, but the amount of people that we've coached and trained and they've said to me, well, I didn't really know that was happening. I just thought, I don't know, I was on autopilot, Tom. Every now when I hear that so often, like, I don't know, Tom, I never thought about it before. Just to even understand, like, I'm using this. I truly believe the only thing you're ever doing is using alcohol to perform at a higher level.
In whatever domain you're going into, socially, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If someone's at the end of the day and they don't want to deal with being tired, you can have 2 drinks and the feeling of tired goes away. That's peak performance to me.
And you've got dishes and you've got kids and you've got, da-da-da-da-da. Of course.
There we go. And if that feels like it helps you deal and manage with everything, then you're using it as excuse me, but I'll say this, you're using it as a peak performance drug.
Yep, for sure.
Be honest with yourself.
I think one of the best questions that I think we'll ask forever here, Tommy, is that it's not, oh my God, why do people drink? It's why are we not drunk all the time? And I'm not being facetious. Like, it's a serious question when you think about it. Why are we not drinking all the time? It means there's something more important than that. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this battle of the soul with people, right? People go into a true battle of the soul in addiction.
Can you just, sorry to jump in that, can you say that again? Why are we not drinking all the time? And just explain that for our viewers before we wrap up.
So we ask people the question, why do they drink so much? Why do I drink so much? You know, that's a ridiculous question. Alcohol is pain killing. It's dopamine releasing. It's calming. It's warm. It's like a hug from someone you miss. Of course you're going to drink. And especially if you're in the class of people where it's a stimulant as well, which is some people. It is it's stupid. This is the wrong question. Why do I drink? The real question is, why are you not drinking all of the time? Because what that does is opens you up to there's something in you that's juicier, more meaningful, deeper, richer, wiser, truer, saying you go into the battle in your soul for this, because drinking is good. Be careful, you know what I mean? Drinking does do a lot for the human experience, but there's something more fundamental to us that goes, I got to be able to go at this alone without it.
That is such a thought-provoking question. Why are we not, if it's so good, why are we not drinking all the time?
Well, exactly. That's the fundamental question.
Would you go as far to suggest that any answer that someone comes up with can simply be the one and only answer on why they might want to stop drinking? Like, as you asked it, Nat, I thought to myself, well, that'd be really sad.
There you go.
And then I thought, well, maybe it's just sad if I have one drink a month. That's sad that I'm disconnecting. I'm shutting off from my real experience in life.
And that, Tommy, you've got it. Like, to finish up here, there's a human experience that we will go to the ends of the earth to avoid. Every single one of us. And it's misunderstood. The human experience of emptiness and the void is, we will do anything in our power to avoid the void. Yet, because we don't understand it. And people drink excessively because when they don't, they feel themselves entering into that void or empty space. And that's definitely worth a conversation on itself. But there's something to be said about the void that we're all avoiding.
We said it wasn't going to be scripted, but surely next week's episode is how to enter the void without alcohol.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely. Strap in.
Love it. Nat, absolutely love the conversation. We'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to, thanks for everyone that's listening. Early days for the Drink Less Feel Fresh podcast and YouTube series. If you're watching this on one of the podcast channels, or listening on one of the podcast channels, or watching this on the Drink Less Feel Fresh YouTube series, thank you so much for being one of our founding listeners and viewers. It means the world to Nat and I. Incredible journey ahead, and looking forward to rocking out with you. So if you're enjoying these conversations, we'll see you next week.